U3, minutes closed session Community and Public Services Committee, September 23rd. U4, minutes closed session Corporate Services Committee of September 23rd. And U5, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board properties matter. In the continuing interest of transparency and open government, I will report in public session any outcomes from today's closed session business. As a result of our closed session today, I wish to report the following. U1, the minutes of the closed session audit committee, these minutes were acknowledged by council. The minutes of U2, minutes of the closed session City Council September 16th, these minutes were acknowledged by council. Mr. Clerk, you may have to correct me. U3, minutes closed session Community and Public Services Committee, these minutes were referred to the October 14th, deferred to the minutes to the council meeting of October 14th. U4, minutes of closed session Corporate Services Committee, these minutes were acknowledged by council. And U5, on litigation, potential litigation, this item was direction was provided to staff to provide more information in open council and possibly closed council in the future. Okay. We are now ready to move to the next item of public business on today's council agenda. This is item C, our minutes. We have one set of council minutes. C1, minutes of the City Council regular meeting September 16th, and I have a motion by Councillor Medeiros, second by Councillor Moore, that the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of September 16th be approved as printed and circulated. All those in favor? That's carried. We're at the consent agenda. The items listed with an asterisk on the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. The consent motion is to adopt these matters on today's agenda without the need for a separate discussion on the item unless a member requests a separate discussion. Does any member wish to add or subtract from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Fortini, Councillor Willens, seconded by Councillor Willens, to approve the consent motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. We now move on to the part of the agenda dealing with announcements. Today, Council, we have 3 announcements. Each announcement requires a sponsor from a member of Council, and the sponsoring member is permitted a moment to introduce the matter before the person comes forward to make the announcement. And at the end of each announcement, only the meeting chair or the sponsoring member should respond on behalf of Council. Our first announcement today is E1. It's Customer Service Week, October 5th to 9th. Councillor Gibson is the Council sponsor for this announcement. And joining us today is Rhonda Zingos, Director of Service Brampton, to make the announcement. Councillor Gibson, did you want to speak first?
I'd like to say I'm happy to sponsor it, and we'll have Rhonda come forward and give the announcement. I'm not sure if Michelle is joining or not, or just you.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of Council, and regular leadership team. I'm pleased to talk to you today about Customer Service Week. It's an annual event that's recognized internationally by corporations in both the private and public sectors. It's a week-long celebration, typically the first week in October, to recognize the importance of customer service excellence and the people on the front lines that deliver it each and every day. The theme this year for Customer Service Week is very appropriate. It's Everyday Heroes. So as an organization, it's providing us with a way to recognize frontline contributors for their continuous efforts in delivering excellent customer service to not only each other in our day-to-day activities, but also to Brampton's residents and businesses, of course. So there's planned activities throughout the week. It includes opportunities for us to showcase specific everyday heroes, individuals or teams, to also participate in an event in the conservatory. It's an interactive customer service themed Pictionary game with snacks and donated prizes over lunch. And as well, for those who can't make that celebration, we are offering a toolkit. So every team or every individual in the corporation can participate. You actually have on your table a sampling of some toolkit items. So you see a thank you card that is in line with the theme. It can be personalized for staff,
and then connected to that is an Everyday Hero wristband. So we're expecting to see a lot of red next week on people's wrists in celebration of this great event. So this effort couldn't be done simply alone or by just the Service Brampton team. So when we come to speak of Everyday Heroes, I'm pleased that this year's celebrations have been organized by a small cross-departmental team. They're here with us today, so I'm going to ask them to stand up and take a bow as your Everyday Heroes so that we can acknowledge and thank them.
Thank you very much, and I believe you're up for the next announcement. Our next announcement is for National Municipal Service Delivery Officials MSDO Conference being held October 5th to 7th. Councillor Moore is the council sponsor for this announcement, and as we were joined before, it's Rhonda Zingos, Director of Service Brampton, to make this announcement. Councillor Moore, did you want to make an announcement now?
Comment.
After? Okay.
Okay. So in alignment with Customer Service Week, we wanted to talk to you today about an organization of which the City of Brampton is a member. So it's Municipal Service Delivery Officials, or also known as MSDO. It's a nonprofit association that promotes citizen-focused municipal service delivery in Canada. The City of Brampton is a member, as I've said, and we are represented on the organization's leadership. I serve as its Vice President on the Board of Directors, and Michelle Solsky, who is our Manager of Contact Center Operations, chairs the Common Interest Group that focuses on contact centers. So each year, MSDO holds a national conference at a different location in Canada to bring municipal customer service professionals from across Canada together to share strategies, best practices, and insights on the challenges, rewards, and realities of delivering municipal public service to citizens that we're facing. This year's conference theme is Working and Learning Together. The focus on the agenda is around digital and interjurisdictional service integration and opportunities and strategies for that. The City of Toronto is hosting one day of the event, and the City of Brampton and Region of Peel are partnering to co-host another day together. So what that means is next week on Tuesday, October 6th, the agenda will have various presentations, panels, and interactive workshops that will be sessions that will be held at Brampton's Alderley facility. And in addition, we will be offering tours of the Service Brampton Centre and the PAMA facilities. So at this time, I'd like to acknowledge MSDO's president, who is here with us today, and he also is a partner in this endeavor with us. He is with the Region of Peel as their Manager of Service Innovation, Glenn Brunetti, who is here. We're pleased to advise that through this event, together the City of Brampton and the Region of Peel will welcome 84 MSDO participants. Those are representatives from 36 different municipal, provincial, and federal agencies from across Canada. So we look forward to that next week.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Well, thank you. And I think it speaks very highly for the City of Brampton when we're not just members, but we are part of the leadership of the organization. It shows that we are taking a leadership role, but that we have the leaders within our own organization, and that we've got what it takes to teach best practices. I think it's also great news for our residents to see the City of Brampton and the Region of Peel working in partnership and showing that we do in fact have a strong relationship and a strong partnership with the Region of Peel. I think our residents expect that, and this is one of those moments when they actually get to see it in action. It's always exciting when we have people from out of town come into our city, and we have an opportunity to profile some of our unique facilities as well, like PAMA and Alderley. I was at Alderley for a presentation last night, and for those folks who haven't been in it yet, there's a lot of wows, and isn't this wonderful? And so I'm sure you'll take a great deal of pride when we have visitors from out of town. So thank you for your efforts, and thank you for putting Brampton on the map.
Thank you.
Thanks to the team. We appreciate what you do every day. You are our heroes. Thank you. So our next announcement is for AADCO Auto Parts, honored by the Brampton Fire Department for generosity. Councillor Paleschi is the council sponsor for this announcement, and joining us today is Chief Michael Clark, Fire and Emergency Services, Public Services, to make this announcement. Welcome. Councillor Paleschi, did you want to speak now or after? Okay, Councillor Paleschi.
I'll speak and then I'll turn it over to the chief. The Brampton Fire Department runs over 20,000 calls each year, with about 2,600 calls involving motor vehicle collisions. Today, motor vehicle accidents may involve hazards such as medical trauma, hazardous materials, and confined spaces. Our extrication teams practice and learn to respond to these motor vehicle accidents. These specialist teams require a great deal of skill and determination to be successful. The old adage, practice makes perfect, holds true. And therefore, regular training is essential to ensure that our extrication teams have the skills they need to be successful. Today, the City of Brampton Fire and Emergency Services are honoring Don Fraser, former owner of Badco Auto Parts, in recognition of his long time and valued friendship to BFES. Over the past few years, Mr. Fraser has made his facility and many vehicles that come through his yard available for our firefighters training in auto extrication. It is through the generosity and support of Mr. Fraser that our residents benefit from skilled, well-equipped, determined specialists. Thank you, Mr. Fraser, for your commitment to support the Brampton Fire and Emergency Services and for your generous contributions to the safety of the residents of Brampton. Your generosity has served countless lives, and in my mind, sir, you are a hero. Thank you. Chief?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, senior staff. It gives me great pleasure to be before you today to speak about Brampton Fire's special relationship that we have with Mr. Donald Fraser and Badco Auto Parts. Brampton Fire currently has 5 rescue trucks, and those are used to help us extricate people from trapped vehicles, and it's particularly poignant in light of the tragedy that the mayor spoke of earlier. To staff these vehicles, we have 180 people who regularly staff them, and every firefighter initially receives training through the recruit program in auto extrication. In addition, the auto extrication teams regularly train to maintain and enhance their skills. To do all that training, of course, takes a lot of vehicles, and that's our challenge. A couple of years ago, Captain Dave Clark and firefighter Stephen Keekstra went out in search of a solution, and they met with Mr. Fraser. Since that time, Mr. Fraser has supplied Brampton Fire and Emergency Services with several hundred vehicles for us to practice with. And they've obviously enabled us to more safely and efficiently remove victims from vehicle accidents. Several weeks ago, as Councillor Pleshy spoke, we met at the Badco yard and presented Mr. Fraser with a plaque to acknowledge his generosity. And as Councillor Pleshy spoke, Mr. Fraser has now given up the ownership of Badco, but I've gotten assurance from the new leadership, Mr. C. Govan, who has assured us that they're still committed to providing a steady stream of vehicles to Brampton Fire. So with your indulgence, Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank Mr. Fraser for his generosity, not only to Brampton Fire and Emergency Services, but also to the citizens of Brampton. And before I'm done, I just want to mention one other thing, that when we were at the yard, there was one young firefighter candidate who took an opportunity to showcase his auto extrication skills, and I think this person may have found his true calling. And you can speak to that, maybe Councillor Pleshy.
So I was given an opportunity by some of the great firemen and women to don the gear of a fireman and get my hands dirty and use all kind of tools. From we were cutting doors off, we were popping windows out, cutting roofs, and I tell you, it wasn't a hot day, but I was hot in that gear. I tell you, it's hard work. And like what's normal of me doing when I do something like that, I challenge other members of council to share the opportunity and get your hands a little bit dirty, get in there and see what our brave men and women go through on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank
you.
We
can, Madam Mayor, can you come down?
Sure.
We can take a picture.
Sure.
But just want to do.
Don, you can say a few words.
Yeah, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you for coming out and for this honor. I'd also like to just add to, when I started doing this, I had no idea how actually dedicated these guys are. These men and women are out there in 100-degree weather, donning the full gear, which you wore and realized how, I mean, this is not a leisure suit. This is heavy, heavy equipment. And I've seen them out there at -20 in the snow and the muck. And I'd say, you know, do you want to put this off for a couple days? And the answer is, you know, this is what we have to do to be ready for it. So it was really my honor to be involved in this. I mean, great men and women working every day for our safety.
So, Councillor Pleshy, I've already done this before. Happy to do it again, but I recommend to all new councillors, it's very heavy lifting, and to be perfectly honest, this is not a little thing that you've done. You're helping our professionals get faster and minutes count. So it's going to really help save lives in the future the more practice our firefighters get. So thank you. We'll take a picture. As we discussed, Council, we're going now to J4 so that we have approved something before we get to the delegation. So, Councillor Gibson, you chaired the Community and Public Services Committee meeting on September 23rd. I now pass the chair to you to lead Council in consideration of the committee minutes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Committee you have in front of you, the Community and Public Services Committee on September 23rd. It was a pretty short meeting. At that meeting, we did receive a presentation from Councillor Dillon on his visits to the recreation facilities in his area in the parks. We had Community and Public Services Committee received the minutes of the Sports Hall of Fame Committee, and Councillor Jeff Bowman introduced a motion to establish an arts and cultural panel, which we will talk about in a moment. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay, Madam Mayor, is bring forward that recommendation on the arts and culture panel, have council endorse it, so we can bring Mr. Chuck Scott forward. So all in favor of that recommendation in that board? That carries, and perhaps the mover of the motion, Councillor Bowman, can introduce Mr. Chuck Scott and have him come forward as soon as I ask for endorsement of the minutes of J4. Pass them back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I've moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Dillon, that the minutes of the Community and Public Services Committee meeting of September 9th to Council September 30th be received and the recommendations be approved as outlined. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. So we have one added delegation on today's agenda. Mr. Chuck Scott is here to delegate regarding the creation of the Arts and Culture Panel. Council, you will recall this item was addressed at the September 23rd Community and Public Services Committee meeting through a motion introduced by Councillor Bowman. The recommendation is before us today for approval and is contained in, as we just discussed, J4. It is recommended, it's listed on page 10 of 12 in the committee minutes. And Mr. Bowman, Councillor Bowman, did you want to speak first? Okay. Councillor Gibson, did you want to speak? You're still on the list.
No, I'll take mine off.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. As you saw and as we all approved, there is a motion to form a committee to look at new arts and culture. The arts and culture is absolutely critical to the success of any city, and I think everybody here on council agrees and knows that we've got a tremendous arts and culture community here in Brampton. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Chuck Scott, who is no stranger to the arts and culture community and is a tremendous supporter and has been for several years. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Scott. You have 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, councillors, for inviting me and appointing me to this position. I look forward to working with you all at some point, and hopefully we can take Brampton into the future with a new arts and culture strategy. Also, thanks to senior staff. In your document, you talk about governments supporting the arts. And I had the pleasure of doing a series for the BBC about art history. And in that series, we looked at the way arts was funded for the last 600 years. The Medicis in Florence and in Venice, and the Roman Catholic Church, and in fact, the King of France, all were responsible for household names like Da Vinci, Raphael, Michelangelo. And it was the government, in a sense, of the time that put that money together. If you look as time goes on, Shakespeare was sponsored by the Queen of England, Elizabeth I. The burghers of Amsterdam created militias, which created Night Watch, and Rembrandt's history of his paintings. Now, I talk about these things, and the reason I'm mentioning them is because we have more examples of these things in more modern times, and I'll come to that. But over 600 years, governments have been supporting the arts, and the reason that they do it is there's an economic spin-off. I work in the film and television industry, and I'm heavily involved in the fine art industry. So I understand what the spin-off is in a community with performance arts, theater. We have a great infrastructure here with PAMA and the Rose, and I think we have to build on that. If you look at Bilbao, Spain, for example, population of about 365,000, they realized that their economy was going down the drain. They were a port, but containerization kind of ruined their port because of the way it was designed. The steel industry was also based there, and they couldn't. The steel industry was drying up in Spain. So what did they do? They searched for an international partner, and they got the Guggenheim to come. And with 95 million euros, they built one of the greatest buildings in the world, the Canadian-born Frank Gehry's art gallery that's in Bilbao. That created so much tourism that they paid that building off, 95 million euros, in 3 years through additional tax revenue. Now, our tax structures in Canada aren't the same as Spain, so that may not be the way that it works here. But it is, if you look at Ontario, the GDP in Ontario of the arts is 4%, $28 billion approximately, where if you look at sports, it's $2 billion and less than a percent. I believe that arts in Brampton has not really had its day, and I think we can go forward with a strategy that will change the way that we do economics in Brampton. The other thing in looking at this, and I spoke to Councillor Moore a few months ago. I've done a little research, and if you look at the different cities in the top 15 cities, most of them have some kind of structure through an arts council that they fund organizations. And most of those organizations take that dollar that they get from the city and turn it into $6 to $8 of additional revenue that they bring in through, provincial, federal, corporate financing, etc. So I think that's where we're going to see the big change in Brampton is to redo the way we've been doing arts, because we haven't really taken advantage of all of those other options in terms of financing and economics. Pittsburgh was another great place where Andy Warhol Museum went into the downtown of Pittsburgh and transformed the downtown. It's now a vibrant downtown. It had died again based on the steel industry dying there. Closer to home, Hamilton has been struggling with loss of the steel industry, and now the council didn't come on side until just recently, but for the last about 8 years, the arts has been building and building, and it's changing Hamilton. In fact, the composer that I've used for 20 years lived on John Street. He now lives in Hamilton, and that was a loss for me because I have to now drive to Hamilton to go and spot music with him. So it is important that we continue forward. I think if you look back on your lives, things in your lives that make you remember certain times. I can remember August '66 going to Maple Leaf Gardens to see the Beatles, and in '78 going to Seneca Roadhouse to see Bruce Springsteen in the rain and snow. or the time I actually saw a night watch in Holland in 2003. These are all memories that are etched in. I can see those pictures in my head today as I'm standing in front of you. So I think arts and culture creates better lives for people. I think arts and culture can create better economics for cities, and I want to be a part of that, and I look forward to working with you all to reboot the arts and culture of Brampton.
Thank you. Councillor Medeiros has a comment or a question.
Probably more of a comment. I agree with everything you said. I lived in Europe before, and I worked for the Portuguese government for a while, and arts and culture, the way it's funded there was a lot more supported than it is in other places, so I agree with you on those. Second, being a member of PAMA and having you been the chair, I know the passion, dedication you bring to it. We've had countless conversations on your vision, and I just want to say publicly state I think you're the best person for the job, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
No more questions, and just want to thank you for your passion, your enthusiasm, and the fact that you're volunteering to throw your hat in the ring on this one. We're very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
I have a motion by Councillor Bowman, second by Councillor Willens, that the delegation be received. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Okay. There are no reports from the head of council, reports of corporate officials. There are no items. H4 is there are the planning infrastructure minutes. There's H4, which is the application to amend the zoning bylaw and proposed draft plan of subdivision in Ward 6. This item was approved as part of the consent. H4-2, which is an application to amend the zoning bylaw in Ward 6. This item was approved as a consent motion. And H4-3, which is an application to amend the zoning bylaw in Ward 6. It was approved as part of the consent motion. We're now at item J, which is the committee reports or minutes. We have now 4 sets of minutes to approve, since we've done one already. Under the council's meeting procedures, the committee chair introduces their committee report or minutes and summarizes the matter considered, and that are now being brought forward to council today for ratification. So, Councillor Gibson, you chaired Member Services Committee meeting on September 14th. I now pass the chair to you to lead council in consideration of the committee minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor, you have those minutes as the mayor indicated in front of you. At that meeting, we talked about the proposal to bring back newsletters, and also the consideration of bringing back the annual calendar that used to be done. Those items will both be brought back forward to in budget. The City Clerk Peter Fay provided an overview on the council office support model and staffing recruitment update. So those were the minutes. I have those in front of you, so I'll put them back to you, Madam Mayor, for ratification.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the minutes of the Member Services Committee meeting of September 14th be received, and the subject minutes, the recommendations be approved. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Councillor Palashi, you chaired the Audit Committee meeting on September 16th. I now pass the chair to you to lead council in consideration of those minutes.
I did. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The meeting was called to order at 9:30 and moved into closed session at 9:39. Audit Committee received a report from Peter Honeyborn, Executive Director, Finance, Treasurer, Corporate Services, regarding audit appointment, contract extension. Audit Committee agreed that the appointment of KPMG LLP, Chartered Accountants, be extended for an additional 3 years, commencing November 20th, 2015. Subject to the Executive Director, Finance, and Treasurer finalizing an agreement with KPMG LLP, Chartered Accountants, for the provisions of external audit services. The committee considered 4 matters in closed session pertaining to the following. Item J1, Appendix 2, Privacy Follow-up Audit Report, a matter concerning the security of the property of the municipality or local board. Item J2, Appendix B, to Purchasing Process Audit Report, a matter concerning the security of the property of the municipal or local board. Item J3, Report regarding PeopleSoft Application Security Audit Report, a matter concerning the security of the property of the municipality or local board. And item J4, Report Network Elements Audit Report, a matter concerning the security of property of the municipal or local board. During the public question period, Mr. George Startup, Brampton resident, asked audit committee members to thoroughly review the findings in the purchase process audit report. Committee moved back into open session at 11:44 and adjourned to meet again December 9th, 2015 at 9:30 a.m. or at the call of the chair. Madam Mayor, I pass it back to you for ratification.
Thank you. I have a motion by Councillor Pelletier, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the minutes of the audit committee meeting on September 16th be received and that the recommendations be approved as outlined in the subject minutes. All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. Councillor Moore, you chaired the Planning and Infrastructure Service Committee meeting on September 21st. I now pass the chair to you to lead council in the consideration of the committee minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Planning and Infrastructure Services Committee had a number of items on consent that were considered to be routine and non-controversial. We had a delegation from 2 Brampton residents with a request that the city protect the welfare of animals and safety of the public by amending our animal bylaw to prohibit the temporary ownership of exotic animals, which would also not allow circuses to be held in our town. Then that matter was referred back to staff for a report and will be on a future agenda. We had a delegation from Habitat for Humanity to bring us up to date on some of the projects that they have in the city of Brampton and to ask for some relief in terms of development fees for their current project, which is going to be taking place at 59 McLaughlin Road North. And so that matter was referred back to staff so they could report back to council on past practices. I do, just by way of a bit of an update, want to advise council and the public that last night the Urban Design Awards were held at PAMA, and Habitat for Humanity were the recipient of 4 awards last night. They received 2 awards of excellence for sustainability. They received the Best Overall, and they received the People's Choice Award. So I think that is a tribute to how far Habitat for Humanity has come in our city. I know Councillor Gibson and I hosted their very first project, and so it's nice that they are before us again, and they've built a number of projects in between, but they're building another one in our ward, so we're happy to be a host community for that. We received the minutes from the Cycling Advisory Committee, the Environmental Advisory Committee, and the Brampton School Safety Council, and these were all received at the planning and approved at the Planning Committee. Our next meeting is on October the 5th at 7 p.m. Thank you.
I have a motion by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Fortini that the minutes of the Planning Infrastructure Service Committee meeting on September 21st be received and the recommendations be approved as outlined in the subject minutes. All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. We now move on to J5, which is Councillor Medeiros, who chaired the Corporate Services Committee meeting on September 23rd. I now pass the chair to you to lead council in the consideration of the committee minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The agenda for the Corporate Services Committee meeting of September 23rd was approved and amended to add the following items. Councillor Miles advised committee of the challenge put forward by Habitat for Humanity for council members to participate in the Habitat for Humanity Build Day. Also, there was a discussion at the request of Councillor Bowman regarding the use of cell phones and tablets at council meetings. This motion was lost on a recorded vote. Councillor Moore also requested that staff provide a presentation at a future committee meeting regarding the delegation of authority by law. This motion carried. Committee heard also a delegation from Ms. Varsha Naik, Chair, and Ms. Amrita Kumar Rata, Project Lead of the Regional Diversity Roundtable. City staff were requested to report back to Corporate Services Committee to endorse the Diversity and Inclusion Chapter of Peel. Also, Corporate Services Committee received a presentation by the Council Compensation Committee. The Corporate Services Committee approved the minutes of the Council Compensation Committee meeting of September 10th and approved Council Compensation's recommendations. Committee proceeded into closed session at 5:30 p.m. to consider staff report on the ATU Local 1573 full-time collective agreement, labor relations regarding employee negotiations, and Corporate Services Committee adjourned at 6 p.m. To meet again on October 7th at 3 o'clock. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
I have some speakers on my list. Councillor Scovieri.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to pull the item on the cell phone, item CS 132, 2015. I'd like to have that reconsidered by council. The reason, Madam Mayor, is that last week there was an article in The Guardian that reported on this issue. And it's the first time I got comments from my constituents, a couple of constituents, actually at the gym. I go a couple of times a week, where they were all negative comments about the use of cell phones in the council meetings. And normally, if I would get different opinions, I would not have raised this issue here today. But since all of them were all in tune, that they thought that us councillors who voted against having this ban for or a trial basis anyway for a couple of months, 3 months, whatever it is, they thought that I was in the wrong place on that vote. So I like to have this reconsidered and take a vote again on this matter.
Mr. Cook.
Through you, Mayor Jeffrey, to members of council. So the lost motion is, as the councillor indicated, CS 132-2015 on page 15 of 18 of the minutes in item J5. This is a lost recommendation from committee, so a member of council is free to move the motion again. So if the councillor has a seconder and the motion is moved again, it's a proper motion before council.
Okay.
So Councillor Scovieri, you
I
want to
need a
move the
seconder.
motion?
Anyone? Councillor Bowman. So I'll move, Madam Mayor, that we place a ban as the motion by Councillor Bowman indicated for a 3-month period on a trial basis, and to be reviewed back at the end of 3 months.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Councillor Scovieri. Any questions, comments, any further speakers? Mayor Jeffrey?
No, I'm on another issue, sorry.
Sure. Okay, do we, so the motion put forth by Councillor Scovieri. So do we need 2/3 to open it, or is it just a recommendation? Okay.
Chairman, to the clerk, are we voting on the motion again, or are we voting on the committee recommendations?
Through you,
Just so there's no confusion.
yeah,
Because
you are voting on the motion again, so it's fair for a member of council to put forward a new motion. The committee minutes are before council now. The motion already lost, so it's not before council. It's reported in the minutes for reference purposes. So the motion that's being moved by Councillor Scovieri, seconded by Councillor Bowman, is the identical motion as stated on page 15 of 18, with the exception, as I understand, for the first line, on a trial basis for a 3-month period, as opposed to the end of 2015, because that's what the councillor said.
it's pretty much 3 months. But, okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't voting to either uphold or the committee recommendation. Okay, so we're voting on the actual recommendation itself. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dillon?
No, I don't have any comments.
No comments? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Can I ask that you put yourself on the screen, otherwise no one can hear you at home?
Did you want to say something, Councillor Fortuna? Councillor Scovieri?
Mr. Chairman, some members would like to have a recorded vote, so I call for recorded votes, being the mover of the motion.
Okay, Councillor Scovieri has called for a recorded vote. All in favor of the motion put forth by Councillor Scovieri regarding the cell phone and tablets use at council meetings? All in favor, please. Oh, I think you will do it, City Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So members of council in favor of the motion, clauses 1 and 2, as stated, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor of the motion is Councillor Gibson, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Willens, Councillor Moore. All opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed to the motion is Councillor Miles, Councillor Medeiros, Mayor Jeffrey, Councillor Dillon, Councillor Paleshi. The motion carries 6-5.
Thank you. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Actually, Chair, I would like to raise another issue that was on our agenda. There was an issue with regards to a report by the Council Compensation Committee. And I've had a chance to evaluate their recommendation, and I think I wanted to speak about it because I think this issue should be aired, and there wasn't, I don't believe there was any media in the room when we talked about the recommendations that were made to the Council Compensation Committee that they were asked to do. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the work for the work that they did. This is a complex issue, and they were dealing with the 1/3 tax exemption, salaries, and the vehicle allowance and benefits. And I want to thank the 6 people that went through it and looked at doing a jurisdictional scan, and I think that was very helpful to find out where we were. I think they talked about the exemption decision and the impact on our budget and the financial impact it would have on our budget. And I think that certainly this was a difficult thing to do, and I think that certainly I believe that it's the intent of this council to eliminate the 3rd tax exemption. My problem is that there is a budget impact, and in the past, when I was on council, my recollection is that when we made improvements or changes to the compensation to councillors, there was always an intention to have it for the future council and to not find a way to enrich what council gets during their existing term of council. So I have a motion, Mr. Chair, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Fortini, that whereas the Ontario and global economy is still underperforming and not yielding the results that we all had expected, and whereas Council has and will continue to have to make very tough decisions with regards to the city's fiscal situation, and whereas Council at its December 10th, 2014 meeting passed the following resolution to reduce and freeze the mayor's salary, which is C-317-2014, whereas in previous terms of council, decisions have been made by council to establish a remuneration structure for the mayor and councillors in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001 and based on recommendations received from a citizen-based council compensation committee, whereas Section 283 of the Municipal Act 2001 authorizes a municipal council to establish its own remuneration structure, whereas it is deemed appropriate for the mayor to demonstrate leadership and fiscal restraint to establish a new remuneration scale for the position of mayor that reflects other comparable municipal, regional, provincial, and federal leaders and representatives, as well as the prevailing economic conditions, which is more appropriate for the mayor of Canada's 9th largest city. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the salary for the position of mayor of the corporation, the city of Brampton, be $165,850, being a combination of the city of Brampton, the region appeal salaries, and remuneration effective January 1st, 2015. And further, that any change to the salary for the position of mayor after 2015 be subject to further consideration and approval by council during 2015. And whereas at its December 17th, 2014 meeting, passed Resolution C-26, 2014 to establish a council compensation committee to review council's current compensation structure and benefits program, and more specifically, approved Clause 16 to freeze councillor salaries as follows: that the current salary rate for all councillors be maintained at the existing compensation level until such time as council considers the compensation recommendations from the compensation committee. Whereas council at its April 8, 2015 meeting passed Resolution C-113, 2015, and specifically Clause 28, further affirming council's immediate freeze of their salaries as follows. This is item 28. Where a motion has been brought forward to the 2015 Budget Committee that a wage freeze be imposed for all non-union employees at the management level and higher pending a completion and council consideration of the core services review. Whereas throughout the 2015 Budget Subcommittee, the Mayor and Council have been discussing a non-union management wage freeze to show the citizens of Brampton that City Hall is willing to take on some of the fiscal burden to ensure public dollars are spent wisely. And whereas Mayor Linda Jeffrey has shown leadership by reducing her salary by $50,000 immediately upon taking office, and whereas Council recognized the need for sound fiscal management, and whereas this Council believes they should lead by example, therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Council immediately freeze their salaries for a period to be determined by this Council in the 2016 budget process. Whereas the Council Compensation Committee at its September 10th, 2015 meeting passed recommendation CC 2015 02-15-2015, and specifically clauses 2 and 3 as follows. 2, that the 1/3 tax-free exempt status for the Mayor and Councillor compensation be eliminated effective January 1st, 2016, and the necessary actions be implemented to repeal the 1/3 tax-free exempt status pursuant to the requirements of subsection 283(6) of the Municipal Act 2001, and that the Mayor and Council vehicle allowance effective January 1st, 2016 be established based on option 3 as considered by the Council Compensation Committee, which is 100% taxable gross-up rate and an equivalent to $14,927.52 vehicle allowance, and B, that the Mayor and Council remuneration rate effective January 1st, 2016 until the end of the current term of Council, November 30th, 2018, be established based on the equivalent gross remuneration for the Mayor and Council in the City of Mississauga, i.e. $139,374 for the Mayor and $84,495 for the councillors based on 2015 rates, subject to an annual review by the Council Compensation Committee and recommendation back to Council during this period. Pending further review by the Council Compensation Committee and recommendations to Council on the appropriate compensation and benefit structure for Brampton City Council for the long term. Whereas the Corporate Services Committee at its September 23rd meeting approved these clauses as part of recommendation CS 124, 2015. Therefore, I'm getting close to the end, I think. It be resolved that clauses 2 and 3 of recommendations C6 124, 2015 be deleted and replaced with the following new clauses. 2, that the 1/3 tax-free exempt status for the Mayor and Councillor compensation be eliminated at a cost of approximately $57,000 effective January 1st, 2019, and that the necessary actions be implemented to repeal the 1/3 tax-free exempt status pursuant to the requirements of subsection 283-6 of the Municipal Act, and 3, that the following be implemented effective December 1st, 2018 for the 2018-2022 term of Council, pending further review by the Council Compensation Committee and recommendations to Council on the appropriate compensation and benefit structure for Brampton City Council for the long term. A, that the Mayor and Council vehicle allowance effective December 1st, 2018 be established based on option 3 as considered by the Council Compensation Committee, for example, i.e. 100% taxable grossed up rate and equivalent to $14,927.52 annual vehicle allowance, and B, the Mayor and Council remuneration rate effective December 1st, 2018 be established based on the equivalent gross remuneration for the Mayor and Council in the City of Mississauga, i.e. $139,374 for the Mayor and $84,495 for a councillor based on 2015 rates, and that the current Mayor and Councillor salary freeze remain in effect for the current term of Council. Mr. Chair, I realize that the Council Committee, the Compensation Committee, did some heavy lifting for us, but I guess my challenge is I recognize the environment that we are in. I believe that the climate that we're in, that the public will be pleased we're getting rid of the 1/3, but will be, I think, unimpressed with the fact that we're enriching our salaries and our car allowances during our own term of office. So, Mr. Chair, I pass the motion to you, and I ask for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Mayor Jeffrey. Councillor Miles?
I think, in essence, what the Mayor's recommendation is basically telling us to do nothing. And I quite frankly am not willing to do nothing, because that's really what it is. It's deferring a difficult decision by this council off for until 2019, a new term of council. I absolutely do not think that's appropriate. The issue of the 1/3 tax-free has been something that's haunted this council for as long as I can remember. The public do not believe that members of council should get the benefit of that 1/3 tax-free as part of their compensation. We have heard it quite strongly from the members of public for many years, and when the Council Compensation Committee came in front of us, they said that it was a unanimous vote, a unanimous choice, and it's in the documentation of the Council Compensation Committee to get rid of the 1/3 tax-free, as most municipalities have done, and that the world had changed such that there were other ways for councillors, like an office expense account, to in order for councillors to use those funds in order to deal with costs associated with their salary. So I cannot support a motion that does nothing. I also believe, and I'm not sure, but I'm going to ask Mr. Honeyborn, does the council not have to make that decision themselves in the year that they do it? I didn't think we could make that decision about the 1/3 tax-free for another council. I remember, in fact, you telling us that. Mm-hmm.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, the way it works is for the 1/3 tax-free exemption to take place in accordance with this recommendation that the mayor has read. We would need to pass a bylaw in 2018 that would then repeal the existing bylaw, and in repealing the existing bylaw that maintains that 1/3 tax-free. And when we do that in 2018, then it would take effect on January the 1st, 2019, and that's what the motion reads.
So in fact, we can't do it right now for them?
No.
No. Okay, I didn't think we could do that. So the other thing that I wanted to make very clear is that the Council Compensation Committee did not put a recommendation forward to enrich members of council salary. In fact, the Council Compensation Committee's recommendations actually reduced our benefit, our salary compensation. Mr. Honeyborn, I had figured it was a reduction of $18,000 the other day, but then I was looking at the numbers today, and I think it's actually a $28,000 reduction in wages that we would be taking if we approve the Council Compensation recommendation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, two things. One, I'd like to first clarify the previous comment that I made. Council can pass a resolution today that instructs that staff to bring forward a bylaw in 2018 that would repeal the bylaw that establishes the 1/3 tax exempt status. So, although we cannot pass the bylaw in 2015 for 2019 effective January 1st, the resolution can pass today that instructs staff to bring forward that bylaw in 2018. So,
but then we would still have to vote on the bylaw.
It would be, yes, it would be part of the council.
It's like not making a decision.
And as far as, sorry if I could, Mr. Chair, as far as the issue with respect to the net take-home pay, I have prepared a chart, and if council wishes, we can take a look at that chart that shows the impact on net pay based on the different scenarios.
I would like to see that if I could, because I think everybody, all of the members of council, when we unanimously supported the recommendation of the committee, understood that in fact we were getting a reduction in our compensation, not an increase, not an enriched anything. So what this actually shows is that a member of council would be getting, can you help me?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's 4 options in front of you.
But I only want you to deal with the recommendation by the committee, which took away the 1/3 tax-free and made us equal to Mississauga. So the difference there, is it the...
Through you, Mr. Chair, when we look at option 1 being the status quo, what it is today with 1/3 tax exempt, and we compare it to the council compensation recommendation, which is option 4 on that page, the net pay for a councillor under the current situation is $72,971, and under the council compensation recommendation, the net pay is $64,268.
So in fact, it's a reduction in our wages by $8,000, roughly, in that. Okay. And so is that all told with the car and everything then? Does that include the vehicle?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it does. You can see that the first 2 lines, if you look down the left-hand side of this page, you'll see the components that make up the bottom line numbers, and it shows your salary and your car allowance arriving at something called total earnings, and then it shows the deductions from the total earnings being income tax, the OMERS deduction, and the Canada Pension Plan deduction.
Okay. So I guess, what really concerns me about all of this is I think this is just a little too late. At the beginning of the year, members of council supported the fact that they were going to get rid of the 1/3 tax-free, and we were going to do that because really our community have been telling us quite clearly that it's a benefit we shouldn't be getting. So rather than implement it, we didn't want to make that decision ourselves. We said we're going to form a council compensation committee. So from last December until September, the process has been in place to form a council compensation committee, doing all of the background work, putting together all of the information. Council compensation brings a report to committee last week. It was supported, I believe, unanimously. And now the mayor has asked us to make a decision, which I don't believe is what our public want. I think our public want us to get rid of the tax-free portion. They want our income to be transparent. At the time when we were looking at the budget in the 1/3 tax-free, I said I would not support anything that in fact made us the highest paid councillors in the region, or in Canada in fact, and that would only consider something that was equitable or equal to Mississauga, which was totally supported by members of council. So I really believe that it's time that this council took the plunge and actually implemented the recommendation of a residents committee, a community committee. We, as a council, have never wanted to deal with compensation, our own compensation, and that's why we formed compensation committees, both in I don't know how many terms going back that we've done this. And I think now to say to a council compensation committee that we're not going to respect the time and the recommendations that they brought forward is not the kind of messaging I think we should be giving to our citizens. So I'm going to ask council to continue and support the resolution or the recommendation that the 6-member panel of our community brought forward to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Moore?
Well, thank you. And Councillor Miles and I don't agree on a lot of things, but I certainly agree with her on this. And I'm going to tell you why. But first of all, I'd like the clerk to clarify from a procedural perspective, the motion that the mayor has put before us cannot even be entertained because the motion before us is the one that's in the Corporate Services Committee minutes and recommendations. Is that not correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, that is not correct. The motion that the mayor has moved is essentially an amendment to the Corporate Services Committee recommendation. Corporate Services Committee recommendation is to adopt option 4, essentially. And the mayor is moving essentially an amendment to that to replace clauses 2 and 3 of that recommendation with a new clause 2, 3, and 4. So it's an amendment that a member of council is permitted to move on the committee minutes that are before council for ratification.
Well, I think we're saying the same thing. The recommendation before council is the one as printed in the Corporate Services Committee. The mayor has moved an amendment, although I don't see it as essentially being presented as an amendment. My next procedural question is this, and I don't have the terms of reference for the Council Compensation Committee before me, but would the amendment be contrary to the terms of reference and require a 2/3?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, not as I understand the terms of reference for the committee. The committee is established by council to deal with a compensation structure and a benefits program for members of council.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to support the amendments. I think we sent a group of citizens or staff interviewed and populated a committee and asked them to do a lot of heavy lifting for us. And they brought very thoughtful recommendations before us last week. And every member of this council, to the best of my understanding, was prepared to live with whatever recommendation they brought forward. It could have been something entirely different from this, but based on their time and their efforts and their research, came up with some recommendations and put them before us. It is in fact not an enhancement to what we have, as Councillor Miles has pointed out. We always knew, and it was probably one of the motivating factors behind not eliminating the 1/3 tax-free over these many years, was because there was going to be a cost to the taxpayer at the local level. So we kept it there, but we've heard loud and clear that it has lost its relevance. I don't know what the motivation is for bringing this forward, to try and amend the hard work of a committee who, quite frankly, have not finished their work. They have more work to do. So if I was sitting in their shoes and I'm taking time out of my busy day to come to City Hall, I don't know how often they meet, once a month or once every few weeks, to come in and pour over data and benchmarking and information, if in fact the mayor thinks she knows what's best. Why are citizens, we can't talk out of both sides of our face and say that, the citizens, we want them to have a voice and we want them to participate and we want them, we want to value their opinions and then disregard it when it comes before council. This is, I understand we have an opportunity to revisit decisions. That's the purpose of sober second thought, but I think that the citizens group have, but they came forward last week and not only put the recommendations before us, but put their thoughtful arguments as to why they came up with these recommendations. So I'm going to support the recommendations as they are printed in the agenda with no amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Sprovere.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really lost at this. Mr. Honeyborn, have you done the math on what the mayor's motion would mean? What it would translate to? Have you done the math to that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's option 1 on that page.
Status quo.
Right.
So maintain the 1/3 tax-free till the end of this term?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's what the mayor's motion recommends.
Is that correct? So maintain the tax-free. Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that there's a cost. Whatever, any other than option 1, there will be a cost to the taxpayer. Option 1, there's no cost to the taxpayer. Is that correct? So if we go with option 1, as moved by the mayor, there'll be no impact to the taxpayer. There'll be nil impact. Is that what I'm seeing?
To you, Mr. Chair, yes.
And if we go with any of the other three, there's either 57, 407, or 182 impact. You know, on this one, I agree with the mayor. The members of council ran, and I know some members here were making better wages on their own previous line of work than they are making now, even at the present rate. For us to change this policy midstream, I think we're doing an injustice to those people who ran based on what they believed the wage would be or the compensation would be. For us to change in midstream, I don't believe it's the right thing to do. I believe that if there's going to be a change, it should be applied to the next term. So people who decide to run, they know exactly what they're running for and what the compensation will be. So in this one, I'm going to support the mayor on the motion, just to leave it as it is, so that there'll be no impact to the taxpayer in any way. And then the next term, the councillors will know and they can decide. Do I want to run based on this new formula? Do I want to, or do I want to just move on to my previous work and so on? So I'm going to support the mayor's motion to stay with option 1 on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sparberry. Councillor Gibson?
There's no doubt in my mind the taxpayers want us to get rid of the 1/3. That's what they said. Not 3 years from now, not 4 years from now, now. I've always, since we've had a compensation committee, gone with their recommendations, and I said the other day at committee, it didn't matter what they said, it doesn't matter what they come back with, I would have agreed with it. And they've come up with something that I think is fair. I mean, we are taking, at the end of the day, a cut in pay to make this happen. And that, quite frankly, is the right thing to do. We're taking our gross pay, our take-home pay is going to be $8,700 less if we do this. But that's what the taxpayers wanted. The mayor's gross pay, from what my calculations, is less than ours. We're going to lose more money than the mayor is on this one. The mayor's is $6,500 going down if you compare option 1 to option 4, unless my math is wrong here. And that's okay. That's fine. I'm not arguing that it should be more or less. I think we have to do it. I think we have to take the bullet, and I'm willing to take the bullet to lose some pay to do what the taxpayers right. We've always known, Councillor Spolieri, there'd be a cost to this, and you recall the reason why we didn't do this years ago when all the other municipalities were doing it, because we knew there was a cost to it. And if we were just to say we're going to take away the 1/3 and still take home the pay that we're getting now, the cost was over $400,000. So, and I don't think that the compensation committee wanted us to do that. And as we pointed out the other day, you know, Councillor Miles had recommended that, you know, when it first came out, that we didn't want to be the highest paid in the area, and if we grossed up, we would be, and rightfully so. We shouldn't do that. And we didn't want to get paid any more than what Mississauga councillors are getting paid. And quite frankly, we have less support staff around here. We don't have a car allowance anywhere near, even after this, than what they get. We're still, at the end of the day, even with the council compensation committee recommendation, still going to be paid less than Mississauga councillors are. And we have more people in most of our wards than they do. But that's fine. I'm not arguing we should get paid what they are. I'm just saying, if you look at this clearly, we are doing what the taxpayers want us to do and take away that 1/3 tax free now, not 3 years from now, and we're taking a pay cut to do it. And I think that's the right thing to do. I'm willing to do it. I want to do it now, not wait. And I've always said that what is the point now if we go against that committee? What is the point in sending them back to look at all the other things? Because they're not finished. I mean, if I was on that committee, I'd be saying, what am I wasting my time for here? I'm not getting paid for this. I spent a lot of time making a recommendation that council now has decided not to endorse. Why would I waste any more time, come back with more recommendations they may not endorse? So right from the bat, I said, whatever they say, I'm going to support, and whenever they come back with the next time, I'm going to support too. But we shouldn't be, as council members, telling them at this meeting or any other meeting what they should be doing and what our feelings would. And that's what happened at the committee. This member of council was basically telling them what they should be doing. And we got to stop doing that. We shouldn't be meeting with them. We shouldn't be telling them what to look at. Just let the staff give them all the facts and endorse what they should. That is the reason, as Councillor Miles said, we put a council compensation committee together made of citizens in the city of Brampton, so we wouldn't have to have these debates today. And quite frankly, we should have just endorsed what they said the other day and taken our cut and pay. Well, we did at the committee. We're obviously not now. That's the right thing to do, because that's what the taxpayers want us to do. Is there a cost? Yes, but it's not a $400,000 cost. And don't forget, even if we put this off to the 3 years from now, it's still going to be a cost. So who are you fooling? You're already putting it off. So do it. Take our cut and pay and do it. I'm willing.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Dillon?
I just want to make a comment on just some things I've noticed, precedent setting as well. We've reduced our discretionary fund. We're eventually will reduce our pay. I don't mind. There's been a theme of, I guess you could say, knee-jerk reactions to certain things. Number one, I want to comment on the appropriateness of it in the precedent-setting midterm. I agree with Councillor Spovieri. We should have it for the next term. The second thing, I'm not sure if a lot of the people I spoke to that day, I remember there was some members of the public who were here, and I spoke to them after, and they weren't really understanding of what is at play here. And if we're losing, for example, $400,000 of actual tax money that they paid, and some of them couldn't, or they didn't have an understanding or couldn't distinguish the actual 1/3. Removing it actually increases what the total cost of it. What I'm seeing now is that my residents, perhaps, maybe I think every ward is different, their concern is the tax money that they do pay. And one of the big things that I know that I face every winter is that people want their snow removed in front of their driveway, which is a $360,000 cost. And so they're not receiving any direct benefit from paying this much right now. Whether it's $180,000 or $407,000, that's coming out of their pocket. And like I said, I do agree with the mayor. I do agree with Councilor Spovieri. I think just the costs right now might be too much. We, as a council, passed the $2.1 or $2.3 million for the renovations, which I voted against. I was the only one who voted against all the options. And I think there's some things coming right now in our budget. I was speaking to Mr. Patushka today. We're $8 million under budget, if I'm not correct. We got to find $8 million somewhere, somehow, to make sure that we're up to par in providing services to our residents. So I'm not sure if we're able to take a hit like this right now. Like I said, the optics of it are good, but I'm not sure if we're able to do it. And like I said, I do agree with the mayor's motion, and I do agree with Councilor Spovieri that it should be left towards the next term. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dillon. Any further comments, questions? Oh, Councillor Miles, sorry.
Well, I just want to say I think it's kind of ironic that one of the first issues that this council dealt with in this term of council, one of the first things was the 1/3 tax for exempt status. I think it was our very first meeting together. So this council said, okay, we have to deal with it. This is how we're going to deal with it. We've spent almost a year dealing with it, and now we're saying we shouldn't deal with it or we can't deal with it. We're going to pass it off to the next council. I think it's a cop-out. Somewhere along the line, we've got to deal with this issue. We've known we've had to deal with it for a very long time. We probably should have done it. So it was one of the very first things for this term of council. You got to deal with it at some point. And at some point, there will be an impact, but it's going to be the one time, and then we will be totally transparent in our benefits. And that's what we need to do. So anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Dillon?
Councillor Miles, but I think I think that there are some economic issues that did have come up.
There always
is what I'm saying, right?
Every year.
Every year. I just wanted to just put that out.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can I ask a question, and I don't know if anybody here is going to be able to answer it. Is the Compensation Committee also looking at what the regional portion of the payment will be at some point in the future, or is that off the table?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is off the table. That's within the purview of the Regional Municipality of Peel.
Okay, because I think the elephant in the room here for the city councillors is that by accepting the recommendations here, the difference in pay between the city and regional councillor gets bigger now than it was before. So I don't know if that's going to be taken into consideration for the region. I see all the regional councillors eyeing me now, but I just wanted to bring that up. It's a bigger differential now if we accept the decrease in our salary, which I'm prepared to do so. But I just wanted to find out if that was on the agenda for the Compensation Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Mayor Jeffrey?
Thank you. I don't really want to belabor this. I guess the reason I had some second thoughts about this when I went back to look at it, and now we have the numbers in front of us, is that it's a $182,000 hit on our budget. And more importantly, I don't think that councillors should be taking less money for this term of office. I think council works very hard. I know they do. And I think that when you came into office, this was the expectation as to what you would be compensated. And the purpose of the motion is to make it clear to anybody running the next time, this is what your job compensation will be, whether it's your salary, whether it's your car allowance, whatever those things are. And we are in some very difficult financial times, and we're going to have to make some more difficult issues. The other thing that's on the horizon is we are also looking at the region to change the governance structure in Brampton. That I hope to achieve in the next 3 years. If that happens, everybody around this table will be representing the city in a very different way, and we're going to have to look at this issue once again. So my goal here was not to somehow hurt council or punish them, but I worry about the budget, and I worry about the person who's unemployed. I worry about people who may want us to make this third tax-free, but I don't think there's an expectation that councillors would receive a significant decrease. So my goal here was to keep things the same, to indicate an intention, but also not to have such a huge impact on our budget, because it is a lot of money, and we have a lot of services that our residents are asking for us to enhance, and we're struggling with high growth. So I won't belabor it anymore. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Jeffrey. Councillor Miles, are you on the board?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, a recorded vote has been requested. The motion that's before committee at this point is Mayor Jeffrey's motion, which is an amendment to Corporate Services Committee recommendation CS 124, 2015. All in favor of the motion as presented by Mayor Jeffrey and Councillor Fortini, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor of the motion is Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Dillon, Mayor Jeffrey, Councillor Chair Medeiros, Councillor Fortini. All opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed to the motion is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Miles, and Councillor Gibson. Mr. Chair, the motion loses 5-6.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson?
I'll put the motion on the floor that was in committee to receive and endorse the committees that, I can't remember the name of the committee, the Public Compensation Committee recommendations.
No, so it's in the to amend these minutes.
I know, but somebody has to move it.
I don't think so. The clerk doesn't?
So the amendment, through you, Mr. Chair, and Madam Mayor, the amendment failed. So what's before committee right now are the committee minutes as presented and printed in the minutes.
So then if I move the minutes, that gets passed.
That's correct.
Okay. Because if that didn't happen, my next motion was to disband the committee because we wanted to listen to them. But since we just listened to them, thank goodness, council, we listened to them, I'll move the minutes in.
Thank you. They've already been moved by Councilor Mazzero, seconded by Councilor Scolvieri, that the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting of September 23rd be received and that, as amended? Oh, yeah. The cell phone issue. And 2, that the recommendations be approved as outlined in the subject minutes. All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. Council, we're now at item L. This is correspondence. We have correspondence item L1 and related correspondence item L2. Do any members have any questions regarding the correspondence? Councilor Scolvieri?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I just to read the last sentence of the correspondence. It states. The Attorney General states that I would encourage you to contact the Office of the Ombudsman of Ontario at your earliest opportunity to discuss how it may assist with the needs that you have expressed. So even though the Ombudsman will not get the authority that is required, the Attorney General is still recommending that we contact them at the earliest opportunity. So that would mean that we start the groundwork right away to bring him in and see how he can assist us in that issue that we want him to look at. So can I ask in this in this statement, will you, the mayor, be contacting them and say we want to initiate this process right away, and if so, then what is the process? Will he come here to council and discuss whatever issues we want him to address, or do we put something together and provide it to him? So what do you see the process here, Madam Mayor?
So, Councillor Scolvieri, I'm going to refer it to Chief Ball, and the Ombudsman now is a she.
Oh, okay.
It's a she right now.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Scolvieri, I sent a letter September 22nd to the newly appointed interim ombudsman, acting ombudsman, on the basis that we had heard that we should reach out now to the ombudsman in preparation for the ombudsman receiving their powers effective January of 2016. It is entirely within the purview of the ombudsman to decide how they want to approach the city. We reached out to them. We're in the position now that we will await to hear back from the ombudsman on how they want to move forward. I think what the Office of the Attorney General was indicating is that we should express the desire and pass on council's resolution so that we can get in the queue and they can see where we fit in as far as the work that they will have before them. And they have quite an extensive office of individuals. So I would expect that they will be doing some due diligence before they reach out to us on deciding how they want to move forward.
Well, can I suggest, and Madam Mayor, that excuse me, excuse me. Can I suggest then that we also, when we do the reaching and they do the reaching, that I believe that the ombudsman should be, members of council should have the opportunity to meet, just as we did with the Auditor General, that exercise, and that the members of council, interested members of council, should have the opportunity to meet with the ombudsman for interviews, or to identify, or to I guess establish the terms of reference of some sort, and what they need to be looking at, what they're investigating, what are the issues that council would like to have looked at. So, because I don't believe there's anything really identified or solid that what the
Councillor
ombudsman would be looking at.
Can I just interrupt? The council has given direction, and those issues are what are being sent to the ombudsman and have been sent, and they're also a subject of conversation that I had with the Attorney General at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. So we've given collective direction as to what those 3 areas and any other areas that the ombudsman chooses to investigate. So I think it's pretty broad, and as the chief, acting CEO has said, the process will be one that the ombudsman determines on a go-forward basis. We won't be able to direct it or determine. I don't think there would be any problem with you talking with the ombudsman, but I think we have to let the process unfold. We've put ourselves in the queue. I've spoken verbally with the minister. We've got a written letter out there, and we're publicly inviting the ombudsman to come in. So I think we've done that, and the L2 is the letter to put us in the queue.
I see. Well, okay. Let's see where it goes, and let's see what happens. Because, from the past correspondence, Madam Mayor, that we received from the minister, I believe that they had indicated that we needed to do our homework first here in Brampton, and then go to the ombudsman. But if the council resolution is broad enough to give them an idea what we want looked at, then let's see what they come up with. I just hope that.
So, Councillor, right now all we're doing is receiving the correspondence.
Yeah.
Okay?
So they have been. What I'm asking is that they have been. It says here to contact them to discuss and how we may assist. So it would seem to me that resolution that's sent by council is not really detailed enough to really for them to really take any action, because it says very clearly, contact us.
Are you looking at L2?
Yeah,
Just the letter?
L1.
No, L2 is the letter that we sent back.
I haven't seen L2.
So that is what you're asking for, and that's what the acting chief sent as a result of that letter.
I didn't see it in the package.
So I think we've achieved what you're looking for in the course of the letter.
All right, thank you.
Read it and we'll wait.
No,
I'll go to my next speaker. How's that? Councillor Palashi.
Thank you. I noticed, and I always forget this, that we don't have a council question period, right, at the end of this? It's only during committees, is that correct? Okay, so I'll ask my question now then.
On correspondence?
Yeah, sure, I can make it about that.
Okay.
How many, I'm looking at the acting CEO, how many investigations have we asked to come to the city of Brampton? How much have we paid out to investigations? And how much is the ombudsman going to cost the city of Brampton? I don't expect you to answer that now. Maybe I'm just giving the heads up that I'll ask that next week at committee to have that prepared.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we can put that together for you, but I will comment now that the ombudsman does not cost anything. That is the role of the provincial ombudsman. That is one reason why we went this route, is because it will not cost you or City of Brampton or the taxpayers anything.
Are you 100% sure about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because that's not, I was told that if they find something and there's further investigation, then that could cost the city.
Yes. Okay, so the cost of the ombudsman,
Uh-huh.
there is none. If it should lead to other matters having to be investigated or passed to other tribunals, there could very well be costs. But the ombudsman work in and of itself, no.
Thank you.
Have a motion by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Dillon, that the correspondence from the Honourable Madeleine Meilleur, Attorney General, and the Brampton Council resolution requested the province to initiate a public inquiry into the affairs of the Corporation of City of Brampton be received, and that the correspondence from our acting CEO, Marilyn Ball, to Barbara Finley, acting Ombudsman of Ontario, regarding the Brampton Council resolution requesting the province to initiate a public inquiry be received. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. So I think we're at the item N, which is the notice of motion. We have one notice of motion. I am the mover and Councillor Medeiros is the seconder. The motion is to reconsider Council's decision on the Council accommodation strategy on the 4th floor City Hall. This is a motion to reopen Council's previous decision on the matter, and therefore a 2/3 majority vote is required to open the matter. As the mover of the motion, Council procedural bylaw permits me to briefly state the reasons for making the motion. It's not a debate, as the matter has not been reopened at this point, and after my brief remarks, we will proceed with the vote. If the reopening carries, then the matter is back on, and Council is free to debate the matter again. And we will now, I don't know that I have many more comments to make, except that I think that ultimately there is a plan to bring all elected officials together on the same floor. That would be my goal, and I think that originally when I talked about this and making sure the council were properly staffed, that is something we still are achieving even as we speak, based on the hiring that's going on. But I guess what I know now and what I knew then about our finances are completely different. So I think that this motion really, I think, is important to have that further conversation based on what we know. And I have to be completely honest, our last audit conversations really made me feel that we needed to take a breather on the renovations. They're expensive. They will be necessary in the long term, even if we just meet accessibility requirements. And I want us to be able to meet the needs of what we need to respond to our residents in the future. And it's important to make sure that we resolve health and safety issues that have been identified by our building maintenance staff. I want to do it in a responsible and a prudent way, and I'm suggesting that staff be directed to proceed with a phased-in approach, and I'm hoping council will agree. So we have a vote. We need a 2/3. Do you want to reopen the issue? Yeah.
So 2/3 vote's been requested.
I guess a recorded vote, probably easier. Just to reopen it, yeah.
So a recorded vote's been requested to reopen the matter. All in favor of the motion to reopen, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor of the motion is Councillor Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleschi, Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Dillon, Mayor Jeffrey, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Fortini, Councillor Miles, Councillor Gibson. Madam Mayor, the motion carries unanimously. The 2/3 has been achieved.
Okay, so the matter has been reopened. It's now before council, and Councillor Miles is on the board.
I'm just wondering if we could refer it to Committee of Council so that we could have a closer look at the options one more time.
So that's a referral, right? Or deep referral? So we can still talk about a referral? Okay.
Yeah, so I know there was a number of different options that were up for consideration, and I would like to have the opportunity to take a look at the different options and before I would support a recommendation on how to move forward.
So, Councillor, I understand it would be referred to Member Services Committee. Okay. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think it should also go back as well to be looked at. There were options that were discussed at the time. At least I discussed a couple of options with Al that weren't even considered as possible options. But again, when this issue first came up, the $2.1 million was just something totally out of the question for me. I take a look at some of the building that has been going on downtown. I mean, you've got renovations happening on complete guttings of buildings, first and second floors, right in our downtown core, that are costing $300,000. So I would like to send it back, but I would also like council to have some input on this, to talk about designs that would work for us, and to have those options considered as well, not just the other four that were on the table at the time. Thank you.
So I'm suggesting that the referral that we're speaking to, moved by Councillor Miles. Councillor Miles, would you you'll move a motion? Yes, Councillor Bowman, do you want to be the second?
Sure.
Okay. And I'll go to my next speaker, Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I mentioned before, I was against the options, all the options that were given previously. I think 2.1 million was a significant cost, and I think we're finding out now that just based upon current economic conditions, that it's a little bit too much for the residents of Brampton. I do think that since we're bringing on the new assistance, that we can get this done with as minimal cost as possible. As Councillor Bowman was saying, there's a lot cheaper options we can get, and at the end of the day, we got to make sure that we're spending the taxpayers' money properly. So I'm glad that we're able to reopen this issue. Thank you.
Councillor Sprovieri.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm happy to support the referral. Just that when staff come back, when we come back with a discussion, we need to address the new staff coming into our office, and I don't know whether that's going to be done at the committee when we debate it again, or whether staff can bring back those options that we can look again to see how we can accommodate the new council staff in the most reasonable manner. So perhaps we can have that information back to the committee. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gibson.
Well, I'm really happy that there's some sober thoughts on this one again, because I didn't support it in the first place. But what I'd like to ask is that if there's any other, because coming back to member services, which is my committee, if any other scenarios are out there that council has that would like staff to look at, I would request that please do that before it comes back to member services, so that hopefully staff can crunch those numbers and see if the accommodations will fit when we get to. Otherwise, if we could just go to committee, we're going to be doing all the debating and sending staff back out there. We need the space now. We know they need the space. At least the council office needs the space. So our staff need the space. My office is fine. It's the staffing we need space for. So if I could request the council members do that and contact staff and give them your scenarios, that would help them, I think, expedite the process a little bit. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Yeah, that was my comment exactly. We have new staff joining our office. They're working two to one desk, and it just is not the kind of working conditions that any of our staff should have. So sometimes we're our own worst enemy, but we need to move quicker on this. I don't know when our next Member Services Committee meeting is, or if we can have a special one called. Mr. Clerk, if you could take that under advisement, and the Chair of Member Services. We have to have that meeting as quickly as possible, and we need to move as quickly as possible, and staff need to make this a priority. we cannot continue to have our staff working in the conditions that they're working in today. The alternative is to take some of them and put them way over on the other side of the bridge from us, which is not helping them to do their job and certainly not helping us. So I know everything's a priority, Mr. Menendez, but once we decide what a configuration that is the most financially responsible, that we get working on that as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Willens.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I was one of the ones that supported the original one, and as our good friend Premier Davis once says, I must have been misguided. So I'm glad that it was brought back out, because there is other ways that we can do the office more efficiently and to meet our needs. So I'm glad that this was brought forward.
Okay, I have no more speakers. The matter has been referred by Councillor Miles and Councillor Bowman to the next Member Services Committee. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. There is no regional council meeting scheduled for tomorrow. The next meeting is scheduled for October. We're at public question period. This is where we invite members of the public to come forward to the podium, ask any questions about any decision made by council at today's meeting. There's a 15-minute limit for all questions and answers. Are there any questions from the public about a decision made at council's meeting today? Going once, going twice. Thank you. We are now at the portion of the meeting dealing with the adoption of the city bylaws to give effect to council decisions made at this meeting and previous meetings. I have a motion by Councillor Fortini, second by Councillor Bowman, that the bylaws before council at its meeting of September 30th be given the required number of readings taken by the mayor and the city clerk and the corporate seal affixed thereto. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Our next item of business is item U, closed session business. Council has already convened in closed session at 11 a.m. today to consider the following items and reported out earlier in the meeting. Item U1, minutes of the closed session audit committee of September 16th, 2015. U2, minutes of the closed session city council September 16th. U3, minutes of the closed session community and public services committee September 23rd, 2015. U4, minutes closed session corporate services committee September 23rd. And U5, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before the administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board properties matter. And that's exciting. You're getting ahead of me. Our next item of business is item V, which is the confirming bylaw, and I have a motion by Councillor Pleshy, seconded by Councillor Spovieri, to approve the confirming bylaw to confirm the proceedings and decisions of this meeting. All of those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. And our last item of business is item W, which is adjournment, and I have a motion by Councillor Fortini, seconded by Councillor Willens, that council do now adjourn and meet again for a regular meeting of council on Wednesday, October 14th at 1 p.m. or at the call of the mayor. I thank members for your respectful consideration and decisions today, and thank the staff for all their information and advice. As was stated, council's next scheduled meeting is on October 14th at 1 o'clock. Tuesday, October 27th is a special meeting at 7 o'clock at the Rose Theatre, and Wednesday, October 28th at 1 p.m. Before adjourning, we have one proclamation to announce that will be issued on behalf of council. It is the wrongful conviction day of October 22nd. It's being given to the association in defense of the wrongly convicted. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn the meeting? It almost lost people. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you. That carries. Meeting is adjourned. Please enjoy the rest of your day.